Yep. Oh, I don't know. Okay. Okay, folks. We're going to ask our four panelists to make it to the stage. Well, why don't you move over here? All right. Joe, does this thing come totally off? Yeah. Pull it out. Oh, okay. All right. Well, good evening again, folks. My name is Henri Boulet. I'm going to be your moderator for the second panel. We also tonight wanted to talk about issues and opportunities for Terrebonne Parish. And with that said, we have four presentations for you tonight. We're going to open with one of the challenges we have as a community, and that is a update on the flood insurance status. And with us tonight to provide that update is Liz Morell. Liz serves as the Solicitor General for the Louisiana Attorney General's Office and has done an amazing job at bringing together people in our state to have a concerted effort to address this issue. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Liz.
Thanks, Henri. Hey, I'm gonna tell y'all a little bit about where we are and how we got to where we are and then where we're going. I'm going to handle the part about FEMA and the Risk 2.0 flood insurance, and then my friend Tim Temple's going to talk about private insurance and talk a little bit about that piece of this. I work in the Attorney General's office. My job title is Solicitor General, and so I'm in charge of a lot of federal litigation. And in January, Dwayne Bourgeois and Corey Leaf came to our office, and they sat down with me and with Jeff Landry and a couple of other people in our office and started explaining to us what was happening with Risk 2.0 and how hard they had worked and a lot of other people had worked to try and get information from FEMA about why the rates were what they were and what kind of data they had used to get there. And no one could get them to tell them. So nobody's been able to get the secret information that FEMA has used to come up with these numbers, and everybody has tried. And so I think they finally were at their wits' end and said, let's go see the Attorney General. And so we started digging in, and it's complicated, so it took a little while, but we filed a lawsuit a few weeks ago with 43 parishes, 12 levee boards, and Grand Isle and Jean Lafitte and 10 states, including the state of Louisiana. So it's a big lawsuit. We filed it in New Orleans. We've got Judge Daryl Papillon, who's a new judge, just got appointed and confirmed. Used to be the head of the State Bar Association. He's a good guy. He's from Baton Rouge. I know him real well, and I think he'll do a good job. We have just filed yesterday to ask the judge to block Risk 2.0. So we want them to stop it and go back to the legacy program while they go back and fix this. And I don't know if they can fix it because they used all bad information to build it, but we're going to make them go back and start again, and they can go back to the old program until they figure out how to do this right. And so that's kind of where we are right now, and where we're hoping to go is to get us back into a situation where FEMA is actually building a program that does what Congress told it to do, and that is provide reasonable, accessible, affordable flood insurance in the areas where they are mandating that you have it. So the government's gone and said you've got to have it in all these places, and it affects your mortgage, and it affects your property values, and it affects your ability to be eligible for any future relief under any federal programs in the future if there's any damage. And so it affects pretty much everything. It affects the parish and all of the ability of the parish to collect taxes, because it affects your taxes and the value of your property. So at the end of the day, it affects your ability to continue living in this community. And so we think that FEMA is ignoring all of those problems. They have in fact admitted that they are. And so the only way that we think we can hold them accountable right now is by going to court and having a federal judge tell them that they cannot implement this program and they need to go back to the drawing board. So I'm available for questions if you have them. Happy to talk to anybody that wants to talk about it.
Thank you, Liz. So you have a question? Okay. You want to speak to her on the side, or you want to address her? Okay. We have one quick question, so people can hear.
You mentioned that you filed suit, I guess, against FEMA, but did you include the National Flood Insurance Program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Everybody down the line.
So the question was, when she filed the suit, did she include the NFIP program? And Liz is saying she absolutely did. Okay, great. So Liz, thank you for that update, and we're all pulling for this suit, so thank you very much for your work on behalf of the citizens of Louisiana. All right. Our next speaker is Timmy Temple. Timmy is president of Timpton Corporation and is a kind of expert on another challenge we're seeing, and that is with the homeowners insurance status in our state. So Timmy, thank you for being with us tonight and updating us on how we're looking in this area.
Appreciate it. And Henri, if you won't call me Timmy anymore, I won't call you Henry. No, thank y'all for listening to me this evening. My name is Tim Temple, and I was asked to come and give you an update on where the state is with regards to the insurance industry. And I'm going to tell you some things that you already know and things that you don't like, right? Our auto insurance, we're the most expensive in the country. Our homeowners insurance is melting down. You know, of the approximately 100 companies that write property insurance, homeowners insurance in Louisiana, 11 have gone insolvent. Another 24 have stopped writing. So using my math, that's 65% of the market left. 35 is non-existent anymore. And what does that mean for you and for me and most of the people in South Louisiana is that we're having to go to Louisiana Citizens. And we know that Louisiana Citizens, by law, has to be 10% higher than the average. And the most recent number I saw, that there were approximately 130,000 policies in Louisiana Citizens. The average premium was $4,500. I don't know what the new number is yet. They don't share that very often, but it was $4,500. I would venture to guess it's higher than that now. The companies that are left writing, they've excluded parishes like Orleans, Jefferson, St. Tammany. They just said, we're not going to write anymore, you know? And that's not your fault. That's not our fault. It's a state of the market. And, you know, we had 4 hurricanes in 12 months. We had over 800,000 homes and businesses damaged by those hurricanes. It's a $25 billion loss. The good news is a lot of those companies have paid most of that money. It's been infused into our economy. It is part of the reason that our budget is flush with money right now. We've had billions of dollars injected as you rebuild and repair your homes. There's still a lot of companies out there that haven't finished paying claims, and hopefully they're going to be held to task to make sure that they do that. But it's an ongoing fight, and like I said, it's things that you already know, right? So the market's in crisis, everything's in turmoil. We're getting rates and premiums that we can't afford, so what are we doing about it? Fortunately, your legislators that you've elected tackled some insurance reform this past session. And there were several dozen bills that were designed to address the industry to attract markets. Because we have to understand that insurance companies don't have to do business in Louisiana. They don't have to come here and write your home or write your business or write your boat. They can pick and do business anywhere in the country. So we've got to change our way of thinking and just acknowledge we want to attract companies. Two ways to do it. One is regulatory, the way the Department of Insurance interacts with companies and how they get them here. The other is statutory, laws on the books. We got to design it so it's more balanced and so that, when you need to sue a company, you should be able to. But we've also got to address fraud, and we have a big problem with fraud in our state. So this past session, your legislative body passed several laws. The one that gets the most attention right now is called the Fortify Roof Program. The legislature allocated $30 million this year. It's a grant program so that starting October 1st, you'll be able to apply for I think it's a $10,000 limit to fortify your roof. So if you're putting a new roof on or you're building a new home, you can apply for this grant, get a fortified roof, and the insurance companies are going to give you a credit for that as well. So not only is the state giving you $10,000 toward that roof, you're also going to get a credit from your homeowner's rider for having that roof. And if you're in Citizens, the logic is that you've just made your house more attractive to an insurance company, so they're going to want to write you and you'll be out of Citizens, so you won't be paying that high rate. The legislature also appropriated additional $10 million toward the incentive program, and the incentive program was started in February of this year. The state allocated originally $42 million to attract companies to come to Louisiana. The harsh reality is those companies haven't started writing a lot of business. They will. That's not doing any of us good right now. Again, realistically speaking, I think the expectation is November 1st, you could see these companies start to offer you quotes. But there's another $10 million toward that program. There were some other minor changes that I call them technical in nature, how insurance companies change their policies, change their rates. The thing that you need to know about that is by doing this, we're making Louisiana look more like our neighbor states, Texas and Mississippi and Alabama. That will attract companies to come in. It's what I was talking about earlier. We need to modify how we treat companies and how we do business so that we can get those companies to come to Louisiana, start writing policies, and start offering you lower premiums. There were several task forces that were created to look at how the hurricane claims process was handled. And I know there were many people in the state, thousands of people that had problems with their insurance companies, not sending the properly qualified adjuster or having multiple adjusters or more than multiple, 8 or 9. You hear some real horror stories about that. But they created a task force to look at how insurance companies handle claims after catastrophes so that at the end of the day, you're going to get better service from them. You'll get money faster. You can start to repair and rebuild quicker. So a couple of things that did not pass the legislative process. There was a bill that was going to require Citizens to reduce that 10%, to give you that 10% reduction, which would effectively mean premium relief to you. Your premium would come down a little bit. That was not passed, unfortunately. There was a catastrophe savings account, which would allow you to put some money aside tax-free, only to be used if you had a future hurricane claim. You could use some of that money towards your deductible. That didn't pass, and I suspect that will come up again. They were going to look at creating a catastrophe fund for the state of Louisiana so that insurance companies could buy insurance through the fund, which would lower their cost, and they would have to pass that savings on to you. Again, that one didn't pass, and I suspect that one will come up again. And I think two things that we're going to be looking at going forward is, at the end of the day, insurance policies they're complex, they're complicated, they're full of legal terms. They've gotten that way just over years and years of change. And I think we need to look at, and I suspect that you'll have people that will push to have, I'm calling it a plain policy language reform, but just make it a lot simpler. If it's simple and you can understand it, your insurance company adjuster can understand it, you're less likely to feel like you have to hire an attorney. And when you hire an attorney, it adds another layer, it adds expense, and we just got to get back to basics. You have a loss, your insurance company comes in, they write you a check, and you move forward. The other thing is, I was looking back here at the markings on the wall with the levees, and I was talking with Chip earlier. The industry is not aware of the work that's being done with regards to flood mitigation and hurricane mitigation. They're not aware that you're building back the marsh, that you're doing all these things that are going to mitigate and lessen the impact of a hurricane. We've got to get the industry down here so they can see the work that's being done. When you tax yourselves and you build a levee and you go from, 11,000 homes that flood to 10 homes after Hurricane Barry, they need to know that. You need to get credit for that, and that's not taking place. Your next legislative body coming in, you're going to have 30 or so new legislators. They're all concerned about insurance costs, I assure you that. I travel the state, and it's on everybody's mind. They're going to work to change some of the reform at the Capitol that needs to be done. You're going to have a new governor. You're going to have a new attorney general. I know the attorney general is going to fight fraud. Fraud's a big problem in Louisiana. We've got to fight it constantly. You're going to have a new commissioner of insurance. That's going to be your lead right there. That's your voice. That's the person that's going to stand up and fight for you. You don't need someone that goes and says, when you have a hurricane claim, be prepared to fight. That's not your job. That's the job of the commissioner of insurance. They need to fight for you. You need to be focused on rebuilding, recovering. Let the commissioner of insurance fight for you to make sure that the insurance company handles you right. And with that, I think I've used up my time, so I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I'll stay afterwards too. So, yes, sir. Fortified roof. Unfortunately, the way the program is under the fortified roof, and it's copied from the state of Alabama, it's new roofs if you're replacing a roof or you're building a new roof. If you're retrofitting an existing roof, it's not under the current law. I think that could be modified, but as the rules are going to apply starting October 1st, it's just going to be for the new roof or replacing a roof. The Department of Insurance will be handling the application, the grant program. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Tim, thank you so much for driving down today and sharing your expertise with us. We appreciate it.
I'll stay around for more questions.
Okay. And Tim's going to stay around for more questions, so if you think of any, please keep them ready to go. So finally, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to introduce Representative Joe Orgeron. Many of you know he represents the 54th District in Lower Lafourche, and also as it comes and borders up against Terrebonne at Pointe-aux-Trembles. So Joe is going to speak on our last two topics tonight. So thank you, Joe, for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you, Henri. All right, Mr. AV guy, I'm going to probably be walking all the way here, so I don't know if the gain's all right. Don't want no squeal. Well, the first topic I'm talking about is offshore wind and what it means to Terrebonne and the Bayou region. So let me just see if this thing works. It would be the arrow buttons, right? I'm pressing them. Oh, there we go. I backed up. Let me back up a little bit. All of a sudden, it kicked on. All right, so the overall presentation, I'm trying to still drive this thing, figure it out. It's pretty much mixing my life experiences with Gulf of Mexico energy, not transition, but addition, and the Bayou region workforce. Look, born and raised in Lower Lafourche, part of the Rise of the Cajun Mariner family. So everything in my life, all my comforts came from oil and gas and the offshore vessel industry. And my interaction in offshore wind came from working lift boats, taking out a lot of oil and gas platforms and saying, we got to use these vessels for something else after, later on in life. So I went up to the East Coast and started doing some offshore or looking for other jobs, and offshore wind is where I landed. So still trying to work this, Mr. AV guy. I'm figuring it out. Here we go. All right, so I went up to New Jersey once. I'm going to fly through these, but basically people up there trying to put up offshore wind turbines, and because there's no platforms, no pipelines, nothing offshore on the entire East Coast, I quickly found that they didn't know what the hell they were doing, and they needed some Cajun ingenuity and people from down the bayou to come up and help them put up the first wind farms. So there's a lot of companies from down here that are right now working in that industry. I know Secor, Bordelon Marine, Auto Candies, there's a whole bunch of companies. So anyway, point is these turbines are getting so much bigger that they're requiring new types of vessels in order to be able to handle the large components. They're leasing already on the East Coast. They're actually building the first commercial grade offshore wind farm right now called Vineyard Wind. I don't know if I'm killing the battery on this thing or what, but there we go. I'm going to fly through some of these. I think the closer I get to you, the better off we are, right? That's the cable. That's actually a cake, but it's the best picture that shows you what the cables that between the wind turbines look like. Let me see. There we go. Different foundation types. I mean, basically, you need a jacket at the bottom. You need a tower, a generator part, and the wind blades. The good part is in the Gulf of Mexico, they're all going to have to probably be jacketed types of foundations. And we know that Gulf Island Marine and McDermott and all the places that all the jackets that are out currently in the Gulf were built. Got a lot of welders and pipe fitters over here. So that's the type of work that we could do. Getting it. There we go. They are huge. These turbines are quite large, as you can see the scale of the Eiffel Tower and the Empire State Building. Got friends that drive through West Texas and say, man, I saw them wind turbines. They're big, they're giant. Man, the blades are so long. So here's James Martin. He's actually working at Avondale on the river, a former GE wind blade designer. And he now has his own company trying to take wind turbines to be Category 5 hurricane resilient. And unfortunately, that is not an offshore wind turbine blade that he's in. That is an onshore. That's the kind you see in West Texas that people think are so big. If I could get this to go one more. You see the little man in there. That's two halves of one blade that the guy's laying in some carbon fiber and all. So the size of offshore wind turbines are absolutely huge compared to the onshore ones. That's all the little fromies down at the bottom are people. This is probably about 5 stories tall, and that is one of the generator portions of a GE 12 megawatt turbine. It takes massive equipment. Come on, baby. Give me a hit. Just next slide. Here's the Vestas one. That's okay. That's okay. I got it now. All right, what type of jobs come from facilitating the installation of offshore wind? Well, siting and permitting. So you got geophysical people doing surveys. We've already been doing that in oil and gas for some times. I don't know if I got to point it at you or what, but I'm pressing this like crazy. There we go. Design and construction, transportation, installation. Things that we all do. Comes in spurts. Commissioning, operation, and then eventually decommissioning. So you're just going to fly through those. Got a nice picture that shows pretty much from quickly from left to right over time. So you got survey people. Anyway, so it's kind of catching up. Not a problem. Why the Gulf of Mexico? Well, there's good wind on the East Coast. There's good wind on the West Coast. huge population centers on the West Coast, huge population along the coast on the East Coast, and all of those people want residential power. Here on the Gulf Coast, we actually have the lowest wholesale energy prices, so why do offshore wind? Well, the main reason is because we have the pipeline capabilities, and we could actually use the electricity to do hydrogen offshore through electrolysis, green hydrogen, pipe it in pipelines, and basically use that for fertilizer and feedstocks. I think whenever in the next presentation that I'm going to do, there's some other slides that'll show it. So things that we do already in oil and gas, you know, coatings, blasting and paintings, construction, rigging, engineering, environmental, protected species, marine mammal observer, fabrication, secondary steel, production workforce, project management. I mean, all of these are supportive activities for offshore wind. That's just off the top of my head. So anyway, here in the Gulf of Mexico, most of the good wind is on the west side, near Brownsville to Corpus Christi, but it's still good in the Cameron, Sabine area. Right now we got like, I think a new lease sale that's gonna be happening here. Already covered that. Got that pipeline infrastructure that could also assist. Got 2 new areas that'll be actually leased off later in the summer. 1 off of Lake Charles and 2 that's been split off of Galveston, where they're planning on having an auction shortly, later in the year. There they are, I&M. In Louisiana waters, we actually have 2 companies, one that's looking at doing a nearshore project off of Cameron, and another one just west of Fouchon. Let's see what else we got in here. Point is it's going to happen. Cheerleaders no longer need to apply for offshore wind. It's going to come. The Gulf of Mexico energy infrastructure assets, fabricators, service companies that have evolved for 60 years to have a 24/7, 365 work mantra of safety environment. They're here. It's exactly what's needed to make these happen. And we've already played a part in doing what was done up on the East Coast. And there's a lot of additional plays for industrial fabrications, not only steel fabrications, but also for things like fertilizer production and all up on the river. And I think that parlays perfectly into the next presentation. If you don't mind queuing up someone else's presentation that they asked me to present. Spin these batteries around here. Maybe that'll make a difference. Get a better connection. All right. Carbon capture. Anyway, it's basically taking carbon dioxide from industrial facilities, primarily up and down the river. I like to think, most of the petrochemical refining processes, the plastics refining, the Dows, BASFs, Archer Daniel Midland's feed, fertilizer production, all of these processes create a lot of carbon dioxide and release it. And as we go forward, they're trying to find ways to collect it, compress it, pipe it, and put it into the ground to store it or sequester it. Next, thank you, sir. Here's a good picture that shows a factory producing carbon dioxide. The little fans are supposed to be what's called direct air capture. Not sure that's going to happen anytime soon, but that's basically just trying to capture the carbon dioxide from the air. But I think the production processes that produce a lot of carbon dioxide is primarily where things are focused. It could be, after it's captured and compressed, it could be used, and you see it going all the way to the right, top right. And I know that some cement companies are figuring out ways to strengthen cement by pumping carbon dioxide into certain catalysts and make them stronger. And that would also sequester the carbon dioxide inside the concrete, or certain types of plastics and other products. But for the most part, after transport, the vast majority of the entities right now are looking at drilling wells, finding formations that were maybe in areas that were dry holes in the past, so areas where there should have been natural gas or oil, but there was none, and now they could basically do what's called Class 6 injection wells and inject the carbon dioxide in there. It usually goes in under pressure, but over like 5-10 years, the pressures subside as the carbon dioxide actually gets mineralized, gets sucked into the rocks, becomes part of the rock, so it really does become sequestered. Next slide. This just shows on the right how much money has been invested in carbon sequestration projects. But the most important part is what's written on there, and that is that two things. Louisiana, because we had great geology 5,000-6,000 feet down for oil and gas, we also have the great geology to pump unwanted carbon dioxide or excess carbon dioxide in there and sequester it. And because we've had a long history of drilling and pipeline fabrication and all the things that come with that particular industry, it's also makes it perfectly fine for us to have that highly skilled workforce that continues to work in there. Let's see, this just shows, well, it's happening primarily because of the Inflation Reduction Act, also known as the Green New Deal 2.0. But if there weren't tax incentives to do it, I'm not sure how much would be getting done, but it is the world we live in, and these tax incentives that are given actually make it business feasible. And there's 4 projects right now: St. Rose, 2 in Ascension, and Donaldsonville. Again, it's all the primary industrial fabrication areas along the river. Last slide, please. Here's a good picture that shows carbon emissions for the whole United States and where it comes from. And you can see that a good amount of it is from residential areas in the green, and transportation, and industry is dark blue, and electric power generation is the light blue. But whenever you look at Louisiana explicitly, you could see that the vast majority of the carbon dioxide that we put out is done along the rivers, and it's done from what we call high temperature industrial manufacturing. So if as a state, you look at the United States, you could see Louisiana as a hot spot of emitting more carbon dioxide than other states might do per population. And where we do it is along the river, where all the refineries and all the processing is. So the more we adapt in capturing that carbon dioxide and using the geology that we have and the pipeline fabrication, highly skilled workforce in drilling and pipelining to sequester it, the better our environment can be. And that's why many people are doing carbon capture, utilization, and sequestration. And it was supposed to be Jason Landclose that was coming here from Department of Natural Resources, but he couldn't make it tonight and allowed me to do his presentation. And with that, I'm much more knowledgeable on offshore wind than I am on carbon sequestration, but happy to answer any questions that anybody has. But it's all about jobs, jobs, jobs. That's really, it's not gonna, I don't think any of this is gonna save the world, but every little bit helps. And most importantly, in order to make it become a reality, it takes the exact workforce that we've evolved here in the Bayou region of Louisiana. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Got plenty of work left to do, but we're on our way. So thank you for being patient and being here. Y'all have a good night.